973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Weekdays 7 till 10 on LBC.
Good morning, 5 minutes after 9, Thursday, January the 14th. Later in the hour, we'll be telling you about a major British industry and a huge event opening there to celebrate billions of pounds worth of business and hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of jobs. But we start, as I've said already, Sir Michael Wilshaw, the Chief Inspector of Ofsted, is here to take your calls, answer your questions. And this on a day, Sir Michael, welcome to the studio, when one newspaper, The Times, good morning, sir, reports that 90 primary schools are refusing to accept pupils who live more than 300 metres away. Britain's booming population is pushing classrooms to crisis point. Some schools turn down pupils who live 100 metres away. So, Michael, it would appear, unless you live by the school gates or you're the caretaker, you can't get into a school of your choice. This is unacceptable, isn't it?
Well, this has been happening for some time now. I was a head teacher in Hackney with 2 or 3 very, very, very good primary schools near me, where the catchment area was that sort of distance. I mean, what's behind this issue is that we need more good schools. That's it, and that's what Ofsted, and that's what I'm about, is to create more good schools so people do not have to move into a catchment area of a good school. If we had more good schools in this country, then we wouldn't have this sort of issue taking place.
And what are you and your colleagues doing then to give us better schools, more good schools, to use your expression?
Well, we're doing our best. As you know, we have removed the satisfactory judgment from our criteria. We've said all schools have got to be good now. Anything less than good is requiring improvement, and schools have got a limited time to get to good. And you know, we're in the capital city where we're seeing real improvements, radical improvements to both primary and secondary schools. The big issue for our country is what's happening outside London, and particularly in the Midlands and the north of England, where standards aren't as high as London, and certainly not high enough for our secondary schools in this part of the world.
Why are those parts of the country lagging behind, perhaps London and elsewhere?
Not enough good leadership in those schools, not enough good teaching that's going on in those schools, not enough political focus by political leaders in the Midlands and the north of England. And in my last annual report, which we produced in December, we said the government should worry about this. We need political leadership in Westminster and political leadership in places like Manchester and Newcastle and Birmingham to really worry about the standard of education in those cities.
So there's not enough leadership coming from Whitehall?
Well, the Secretary of State knows my feelings on regional underperformance, and she has quoted me, and other people have quoted me on this one. We had Nick Clegg on the radio the other day mentioning Ofsted and Ofsted's concern about regional underperformance. And we've got parts of our country, particularly isolated communities and coastal communities, where it's really tough getting good head teachers and good teachers.
You say it's tough. A head teacher of a school in, say, Birmingham or Manchester, what sort of money would he or she be thinking?
Head teacher?
Yeah.
Well, a head teacher in London of a secondary school would probably be on over £100,000 a year.
And in Birmingham?
And in Birmingham, probably less than that, probably 80 to 90.
Still not a bad salary.
Still not a bad salary. And the thing about being a head, and I've been a head for forever, it seems to me. But the thing about headship, it's just one of those great jobs. You know, you're dealing with children's lives, and you know, your job is to improve their lives, and through them, the society in which we live. So
but teachers tell me that people are not attracted to the profession or even leave because of organisations such as yours, because of all the form filling, of all the planning, all the inspections,
well,
all the inspections.
They say that, but it's not true. We don't expect lots of
bureaucracy. Well, that's what they tell me,
I know, but it's certainly not true, Nick. We don't require lots of bureaucracy. We don't require lots of form filling and tick box. What we want to see are good schools. And, you know, you can tell a good school within about half an hour of being in there.
Tell me how.
You know, you walk in, you don't see any litter on the floor. You see lots of corridors with people's work being celebrated. You see youngsters behaving themselves. You see focus and order in the classrooms. You see children enjoying themselves because they know they're in a good school. And you see powerful and dynamic leadership. And it's easy to spot that when inspectors go in.
And how easy is it to deliver if you are a group leader or a head teacher? How easy is it to deliver all of the above?
Pretty easy. Yeah, there will be head teachers jumping up and down.
So
when I
I've
say
got
that.
a group of recalcitrant 14-year-olds in an
but
inner
all
city
you-
who just won't listen to me.
If you are a head teacher of any stature and any authority, the bit you can get right easily is behaviour. Believe you me.
How? If you're faced with, well, I'm sure it never happened with you because you project a certain aura and image, but if a teacher listening now, a little bit late to his or her class, thinking, God, I hate it, I've got 30 14-year-olds who are just going to stare at me and be unruly, what should they do, the teacher?
Well, that shouldn't happen in a well-run school. This is all down to leadership. And we're saying if you've got a good leader of stature who is determined to run the school well, determined to ensure there's good behaviour in the classroom, then teachers feel well protected and well supported. I'm shocked sometimes when I watch television programmes where head teachers and senior leaders in schools walk into classrooms where children are misbehaving and nothing happens. That would never have happened in my time as a head, and I want head teachers to assert their authority.
Yes, I sense it wouldn't somehow. So, Michael, put your headphones on, please. You're going to be speaking to some callers. Let me know that the volume is OK as I bring Ali in Croydon into the conversation. Ali, you're through to Sir Michael Wilshaw. Go ahead with your question, Ali.
Yeah. Hi, Nick. How you doing? All right. Good to join your discussion.
Yes, good to have you on.
Thank you so much, Nick. I'm your great fan. Well, I would like to say that Islam in its pure nature is very considerate to everyone, and that's what it expects from its followers, you know.
Right.
With my own example, growing up in India, a truly democratic country, you know, where Muslims are only minority, we never had this issue that, you know, to prepone or postpone the examinations just for Ramadan, you know. It would be very unfair for the other people.
So to move you to the question, I think this is the suggestion that the exam timetable should be revised to accommodate pupils who celebrate Ramadan. Is that the question, Ali?
Yes.
OK, sir, stay on the line. Let's bring Sir Michael in. Sir Michael.
Well, I don't believe that we should reorganise the examination timetable to fit in with religious festivals and celebrations. Once we do that, we set a very bad precedent. Remember, examinations...
Don't we want our children to be afforded every opportunity, Sir Michael?
Well, we do, but, you know, this is setting a difficult precedent because examinations take place throughout the year. The schools set internal assessments throughout the year. Once we give in to one religious group, then we've got to give in to the other groups who might say, well, we've got a celebration here, a festival here, a holy day there. We want you to change it. Schools would find it very difficult to manage that.
But those in support say it's very difficult. It's just the main subjects of English and maths. They can move the rest of the timetable. No one else is inconvenienced. It's part of being a multicultural society, if you will.
OK, but I'm just pointing out that this is setting a precedent that we've never had before. And once we set a precedent, then other religious groups might pile in and want changes themselves.
A pen attached to your head.
I know. I can't get it off my head.
Let me just... Well, Ali, thank you. Why don't you pass me those? Because that must be desperately uncomfortable.
There we are.
We've done it. Right.
Yeah.
It was rather difficult because you had to bet you as if you were poised to suddenly... OK, so you're not a fan of that. Let's get a response. Ali, a quick response from that, if you would.
Well, you know, I think I agree with Michael, you know, because...
interesting.
We just can't, you know, have, you know, one community, you know, giving priority over others. Islam has always been considerate to everyone. So, you know, if somebody wants to fast and do examination, I don't see any problem in that, you know, because I have done that for 15 years, you know, and I never had any issues. I was always a first-class student.
And you're a first-class caller. Ali, on that positive note, we'll leave it. Thank you for getting started. Janet, you're in Wilshaw. You're through to Sir Michael. Go ahead, Janet. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
To you both. So, Michael, wouldn't it be regarding the times table, wouldn't it be a good idea for the times table to be at the back of all the exercise books, so it gives the pupils support. Besides the teachers and the calculators, we know the calculator hasn't been helping very much with the times table, and obviously, as we know that time multiplication is a shorter way to division, and it's so quickly to do. And you know, wouldn't it be nice? It used to be in my times, and I'm retired now. I'm still remembering my times table.
Well, I think, you know, the government's determination to ensure all children know their timetables and are tested on it at the end of Key Stage 2 is a very good idea. And what most people don't know but should know is that in most primary schools that I've come across, youngsters know their timetables well before the age of 11 at the end of Key Stage 2.
How do they do it? Is it by chanting?
By chanting and by rote learning, and that's what's happening already. And
are you in favour of chanting?
Yes, I chanted a lot when I was at school and learnt my times.
So if I asked you 7/8,
please don't do that.
You know 7/8, would you, Sir Michael?
I'm not going to answer that one.
Janet, 7/8.
56.
Thank you. On you go, Sir Michael.
Yeah. Well, I'm greatly in favour of this. And
how did it ever go? Because I chanted, you chanted.
Well,
young Janet. Why did it ever go away?
It was part of the tosh and nonsense of the 70s and 80s and 90s when standards dipped incredibly in those terrible decades when we failed generations of children. Primary schools now are doing very, very well, not only in London but across the country. It's secondary school performance that I'm really concerned about.
So when teaching professionals say, look, they don't need to learn timetables, children don't need to learn timetables, they've got their mobile phones, they've got other bits of kit that can tell them how much 7/8 is, how would you respond?
Well, I would say they need that when they haven't got their mobile phones with them. It's just one of the basic things that youngsters need to know.
All right, quick response from you, Janet. Quick response to Sir Michael.
Yes, I think so, but also it's very nice if it's printed at the back of the exercise book. I know a lot of people now are saying chanting is old-fashioned. I learned it by chanting, and the exercise books I think is really helpful.
Good idea, Janet. Thank you for that. Please excuse me moving on. It's because I've got everybody wants to get through to the Chief Inspector. And it's Anthea in Waltham Abbey who's up next. Go ahead, Anthea. Good morning.
Good morning, Nick.
Good morning.
The government proposes to have Ofsted inspectors go into scout groups, holiday church clubs and football clubs, other things like that, to question the volunteers and even the children about their thoughts and beliefs. Is Mr Wilshaw ready and happy for Ofsted inspectors to be used as thought police, shutting down community groups in this way?
Well, we're not thought police, but, you know, what you've got to understand is that we have identified unregistered schools, so-called schools, unregistered settings in parts of the country that are putting significant numbers of children at risk. And when I say significant numbers, we've been into some institutions in Birmingham where there were 30, 40 youngsters being educated and living in the most appalling conditions in a filthy environment where there was homophobic literature, misogynistic literature, anti-Semitic literature, where the staff had not been vetted. So children are at risk, and risk of abuse and risk of radicalisation. Now, the government is seriously concerned about that and wants Sunday schools and wants madrasas and after-school clubs to be registered. That won't take a lot of time, and we will not be inspecting every one of them, but we will know that they exist. And if there are concerns, if whistleblowers do tell us that there's an issue, then we will go in and inspect. So our inspections will be proportionate.
Great.
I'm not happy with that at all, in fact, Mr Wilshaw. We know that there's very little redress for institutions that are unhappy about the conduct of Ofsted inspectors. And I'm really unhappy about the idea that you could take my children away and question them without me being there because they happen to go to a holiday Bible club or a choir or a little community kids club or a mums and tots group. I don't think that's an appropriate use of Ofsted's time. We already have legislation to cover schools, but I think and we already have legislation to cover inappropriate behaviour that's going on outside in the wider community. Are you going to come into my house next and inspect my bookshelves? I know that there are several Conservative MPs who've written publicly and spoken publicly about this, but I'm actually very concerned by his answer because he seems to be very, very happy, inordinately happy about the idea of coming into
let's get some Mike at the MPs of whom you refer, Sir Gerald Howarth, David Burrows, Gary Streeter, Fiona Bruce. This is concerns that Ofsted, your organisation, might, and I'm going to cite the example, go into Sunday schools, Sir Michael.
Well, as I say, our inspections and visits to these places will be entirely proportionate. We haven't got the resources to go into everyone, but we need to know. The government needs to know where these places are and who's running them and whether they're fit and proper people to run these places. Because if they're not fit and proper people to run these places. And if children are at risk, that is a very, very serious issue. And as I said, we've identified places up and down the country where children are at risk.
But those aren't Sunday schools. These are presumably madrasas, are they, in places like that?
Yeah.
Why do all have to be lumped into one potential problem area?
Well, we've got to deal with
such as where Grace's... I'm sorry, I keep saying Grace. Anthea's children go, such as where Anthea's children go.
Well, fine. We've got to deal with this in an even-handed way. And all we're saying is that if church groups or religious groups want to run out of school classes, then they need to register so that the country and the Department of Education know they exist and that they're being run properly.
Quick final response on this, Anthea?
Well, it's hardly done hole in the corner. Most churches and groups have community notice boards that make it public to all. But what concerns me is if you don't have the right resources, Mr. Wilshaw, on the say-so and the stroke of a pen of a single inspector, an institution could be tarred in order to be made an example of. If you can't go to all the places, what you'll do is pick out places to make an example of them. And I say again, you will not be taking my children into a room and questioning them about their beliefs without me being there.
And inspectors won't be doing that either. And the great majority of Sunday schools and church groups will not be affected by this. But we need to know if a Sunday school is being run, is it registered? Is it being run properly by people that have been through proper safeguarding checks, and if that's done, then we're happy with that, and we will only go in when we feel that there's a need to do so.
Let's move to some... Thank you, Anthea. Grace has sent... This is where I was getting a name from. This email. I'm a teacher. I won't be able to speak to Sir Michael as I'm teaching. Can you ask him why a coasting school has to wait 12 months before it's supported by an outstanding school in a local area? There's a school that's not going to achieve any better than 35 to 40% English and Maths GCE, because the whole cohort did early entry maths. Surely that information is in the public domain. Why do the children have to wait another year before getting the local outstanding school to aid?
Yeah, that is a worry. We want schools that are underperforming, including what's called coasting schools, schools that used to be called satisfactory, which are now judged to require improvement. We want them supported and challenged as much as possible. And we're moving in this country to a system which I support, which is good head teachers and outstanding head teachers supporting schools that are less than good. And the more that happens, the better. I'm sorry to hear of this particular case, but it's really up to multi-academy trusts and to local authorities.
Why the 12 months? Is that how long it takes to implement?
Sometimes it does. You know, head teachers are incredibly busy, and we want more good heads to get involved in supporting other schools.
All right. This comes from Rachel in Bexley. Does Sir Michael agree that girls who go to single-sex schools can do well at school, but are at a huge disadvantage if they're unable to talk to boys, as one leading headmaster said the other day?
Well, you know, single-sex schools work. Some single-sex schools don't work.
Are girls at a disadvantage?
No, I don't think so. I ran a single-sex boys' school and I ran a mixed school. Both did very well because the leadership was good and the teaching was good.
That was down to you. Kieran is in Hull. Kieran, you're on the radio. Go ahead.
Hi there. How you doing?
Good, thank you, sir. Your question to Sir Michael.
I think part of the problem is when he just said before to the female caller, when he said you need to be even-handed and you have to be proportional. And I'm afraid you can't be both, because if you want to deal with this with the problems in the schooling system proportionately, then you need to identify what the biggest threat and where the biggest threat is coming from. And unfortunately, at the moment, the biggest threat is coming from the Muslim community. It wasn't the Hindus who were trying to take over the school board. It wasn't the Buddhists who were trying to replace all their teacher and impose a hardline Buddhist ideology in their schools. It's not the Sikhs who are going on.
Okay, so if I move you then to the direct question, if you would. Sorry to talk over you.
So if you want to, you can't be even-handed with the response. As you said before, resources are limited, so it's much better to invest those resources in the actual threat that it's coming from. You can't just pretend that there's nothing wrong with the...
All right, let's get the Chief Inspector in.
The most important thing, as far as I'm concerned, is that we know where these places are. We know where a Sunday school is taking place. We know where a madrasa is taking place, or a yeshiva is taking place. That's the important thing. And as I said, with these institutions we found in Birmingham, no one knew they existed until people started to complain and the local authority became worried about it and called us in. So that's the important thing, that we need to know where these places are and that they're well run.
Kieran, thank you for that. I was speaking on this show with London Mayor Boris Johnson last week a little bit about this. He had this to say, Sir Michael.
If you ask me, do I want to see loads more faith schools? Or I'll be honest with you, I'm a bit uneasy about it. I've made my views plain to my friends in government for a long time. Well, I went to a school in London. Everybody was jumbled in together. That's the way it should be done, in my view. Okay, I accept that there are long-standing traditions and that many of these schools are great, but I want to see them having their doors open to people of all faiths and teaching values. So
does Ofsted have sharp enough teeth?
Well, I'm not going to comment on the sharpness of the teeth of Ofsted, but they some schools plainly in the last few years have become, taken over. You've seen the stuff about the Trojan horse affair. That plainly was not wholly without foundation. There are schools where there are legitimate matters for concern.
So what should Ofsted be doing?
And my view is that Ofsted should be very, very tough on these questions.
So is it tough enough?
I want to see schools where basically everybody's together, everybody speaks English, everybody understands British values, British history, feels proud of this country, and it shouldn't be so difficult.
Response to what the Mayor said.
Well, what happened in Birmingham was incredibly serious. The Trojan horse issues, where governors were determined to alter the character of the school and impose their own views, was incredibly serious. They intimidated and bullied head teachers. Look, as far as faith schools are concerned, it was part of the settlement, the 1944 Education Act settlement. A lot of faith schools do incredibly well and promote British values. We're concerned with faith schools that don't promote British values, and we're coming down on them hard and heavy if they don't do that one. I think it's a sensible idea when a new school starts now, a free school, for example, for the government to say 50%, if it's a faith school, 50% have to be from other faiths. That's what's happening at the moment, and I think that will enormously help.
Before we go back to the calls, one final email for now. This comes in from Tracy in Hertfordshire. Does Sir Michael agree with the widespread policy of parents being fined if they take their pupils out of school to go on a holiday?
Yes. Is a simple answer to that one. Look, as an ex-head teacher, I was incredibly annoyed, frustrated when parents took their children out of school for a holiday. They missed whole chunks of the curriculum, and they found it difficult to catch up.
They often say, well, we're going back to India, where we're from. They're going to be culturally enriched, or we're going back to Jamaica.
No, we'll do it in the school holidays. Do it in the school holidays.
Well, my grandfather celebrated the child's...
if there are exceptional reasons, then schools will take that into account.
Obviously the death of a grandparent or something. Yeah,
that's fine. But to take your youngsters out because the airfares are going to be a bit cheaper at that time is nonsense.
Lee in Orpington, you're on the radio. Lee, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, gents. Just straight to the question. Are you considering reopening special needs schools at all? Because at the moment, we obviously have special needs pupils in mainstream schools.
Well, I'm a big fan of inclusion, and we, for example, in the school I led in Hackney, we had an autism unit in the school which was incredibly successful, and for some of the time the youngsters joined mainstream classes. Other times they were educated separately with specialist teachers. I'm a big fan of it, but on occasions some youngsters with very complex special needs need to be taught separately in special schools, and there are special schools around the country. Most of them do incredibly well, but the drift towards inclusion is one I support.
Lee, have you a personal experience of this, Lee?
No, what it is, because my wife works in the school. She's just an LSA. I don't know if you had LSA.
Yes, we did.
When you was an headmaster. Obviously, when I went to school, we just had one teacher. That was it. But really, I mean, in a primary school, she was there just wash paint pots out and things like that. Now she's having to do Senko, taking one-on-one with
Senko, you've got to help me there.
Special needs coordinator.
Thank you very much indeed, Sir Michael.
Now, she's not qualified. You're saying you had qualified teachers. Now, Nick, you live in, I don't know whether it's Lewisham or Greenwich.
Blackheath, in between the two. Yeah, go on.
We had Rose Cottage, which was for, sort of special needs. But they all got shut. So now you're just trying to do it on the cheap, aren't you? So you're getting LSAs that have got no formal, training. Oh, yeah, here you go. Here's special needs kids. See how you get on.
Well, the learning support assistants that you're referring to play an invaluable part in school life.
Sir Michael?
Well, some of them might do that, but a lot of them have got degrees, And a lot. Let me tell you from my experience, a lot of them have got degrees.
I'm telling you from my experience. I know all the LSAs in a school.
Okay.
None of them have got a degree.
But a lot of them do a terrific job in one-to-one support with children with special educational needs, and they do. And youngsters with those needs do very well, not only because of what the teacher is providing, but also what the learning support assistant is giving in terms of mentoring and support.
They're not qualified.
Some of them,
the kids get up, walk around, throw chairs about. There's no discipline because you can't do anything to the kids.
Well, that might be the case in the institutions that you're in some of the institutions that you've seen, not in the ones that I've led.
Well, we have to go by what Lee's told us and Sir Michael's response. Final question coming up in just a second. There is this sort of sense of opinion that in some cases, Sir Michael, ADHD and other learning difficulties are overprescribed, because I understand that it allows for greater time at an exam. I think, does the pupil get greater time?
They do.
Perhaps provision of a laptop or something? This is what I'm told. Do you think there are in some cases then there is an ADHD that might not in truth be present?
Well, the assessment is absolutely critical, and I think the point you make is a very important one, that there have been issues in the past of schools and head teachers and teachers identifying special needs when there wasn't special needs to attract more funding for the school.
How do we crack down on that?
We've cracked down on that one now. And what is absolutely critical is that the SENCO, the special needs coordinator, and teachers within the special needs department assess children accurately and make sure that only the ones that do have special needs receive the additional support that they deserve.
But in some schools, it's almost like 3 pupils in every 15, a third of the rugby first 15.
Well, I mean, if that happens, Ofsted would soon identify that as a big issue and criticise the school.
Time for a final question. Jill in Maidenhead. You're on the radio, Jill.
Thank you. Hi, Nick. Hi, Sir Michael.
Hello.
I have a daughter. I have 2 daughters, actually, but I have a daughter at a Russell Group uni doing maths. And she's in her second year, so next year is her final year. This summer, she feels, and I feel it's really important, she gets an internship. And I spent my Christmas helping her do internship letters and filling in forms and doing assessments. I'd really like her to go into teaching. She'd be a fantastic teacher, woman, maths, bright. But there's no internships that I can find for somebody like my daughter. I know schools shut in the summer, but there's your department, there's the Department of Education. I just wondered if there's somewhere that I can point her to, so that we don't lose that type of.
Well, if she wants to be a teacher, I'm really overjoyed to hear she wants to become a teacher. If she does want to become a teacher, there are 2 routes for her. One is to apply to a higher education institution for teacher training, or to something called School Direct. That's where a good school or an outstanding school runs a partnership where teachers are trained. So do talk to her about applying to either route, and go onto the teaching agency website.
But I think what Jill, you're saying is you want sort of your daughter to get her hands dirty, if you know what I mean, to actually experience it in the raw.
Yeah.
How would these organisations facilitate?
Kids will be doing internships.
Yeah. Where do you live?
Maidenhead.
I live in Maidenhead.
If you live in Maidenhead, what I would do is I'd write to a number of head teachers, say your daughter wants to become a teacher, that she'd like some work experience. She's a maths teacher. They would grab her with both hands, believe you me, to give her some experience in the classroom.
Okay.
All right. Jill, will you let us know how you get on? And thank you very much for all, and best of luck. I'm sure Sir Michael will echo these sentiments. The best of luck. Let's hope your daughter makes it into a great profession. Sir Michael, we've come to the end of our time. It always flies so quickly. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. And, of course, a Happy New Year to you and all your colleagues at Ofsted. Sir Michael Wilshaw, Chief Inspector, appearing here on LBC, where news is next.
The head of the Met Police has told LBC the number of trained firearms officers in London is going to increase by a quarter by the end of the year.